I'm going to go through my biography and talk about why I chose some of the different language. I don't think that this will be new to you, so it's just some revision, but I did include a couple of slightly tricky items. On the first slide it says, I was born in Sheffield. That's easy enough. It's the first example of the passive voice that most people learn. The rest of this is mostly straightforward, apart from the last item. Now, if you're talking about how long something happened for, you often use the continuous aspect. But the verbs live and work are a bit special because they reflect how you feel about where you live and work. If it feels like home, you say, I live here, or I lived there, even if it was only for a short time. I was living. I visited the pyramids when I was living in Egypt. When I lived in Egypt, it was on a temporary contract. I had to have a visa. It wasn't permanent. I lived there longer than I lived in Bedford, but Bedford felt like home, so I lived there. The river behind my house flooded when I lived in Bedford. You see, the grammatical structures are determined by my attitude rather than the time. The second slide is okay, I hope. I lived in Scarborough. Lots of towns in England and the UK have borough in the name. It means hill and is similar to berg, which means mountain in German, I think, like in the word iceberg. It's really great because it messes up American tourists. There's a town called Loughborough. I heard an American called it Loughborough. You see, even native speakers find British English hard. The song Scarborough Fair was made famous by Simon and Garfunkel. Did anyone try Has Been made famous? I mean, the song is still famous. Present perfect sounds like a good option. No, it doesn't feel right. It was made famous a long time ago, so it might still be famous, but the main verb is very much in the past. The third slide has a slightly unnecessary past perfect. Normally, you only need to use the past perfect if there isn't any other information that tells you the time order. And the word after indicates the order, so I could say after I graduated. I think that the past perfect adds a little information as it relates the two activities, which I think implies they were close in timing, but I feel like I'm making excuses a bit. On the next slide, the visa application, it was terrifying. We've had 3 really long visa applications for my wife. People in the UK have no idea. My friends say, oh, but she's your wife, her children are British. Nope, it's a really horrible process. The only interesting thing in terms of language is this bit at the end. My wife was expecting our second child. To be expecting means to be pregnant, and it's always used in the continuous aspect. Okay, slide 5. So, the town was feeling a bit too small. But Jack, isn't that a stative verb and should be simple? No, it's definitely meant to be continuous. The town did not feel too small when we first moved there. It started feeling too small after about 5 years. Does that make sense? I think so. I don't think there's anything to talk about on slide 6. It's all present simple, and I hope you got this right. And then on slide 7, there's one slightly complicated phrase. It's great to be living by the sea. Why did I choose this continuous aspect? You know what, I'm not really sure. Both versions feel okay, but the continuous feels more natural. The only thing I can think of is saying it's great to live by feels like I'm making a statement about the meaning of life, whereas the continuous form feels less monumental, more informal in a way. Okay, now it's time for you to speak again. I have 2 more speaking tasks for you. These are simple tasks, I hope. The first task is to speak about your past. I've created another slideshow that has different slides for A's and B's again. This time there's a prompt and there are some examples of useful language for you to use. So you're going to take turns telling your partner about something and asking your partner's questions. Asking your partner questions. This is very similar to the activity you did earlier, only I want you to think about something specific each time and to focus more on the language. This is an assessed speaking, so you'll have 1 minute to talk about each slide and then 1 minute at the end to assess yourself and your partner. Please pay particular attention to the past forms you and your partner use. I hope you managed to use some perfect and continuous forms. When it's time to move, you'll hear the next slide. When it's time to move to the next slide, you'll hear a ding, next slide please. Okay, let's get you into pairs. Off you go.